Can you imagine having anything you want or need in your hands within minutes of wanting it without paying for it? No, really, try to imagine a world where everything is fast and free. Now, I'm not talking about the sharing of your car like Uber or the sharing of your spare bedroom like Airbnb, but I'm talking about the sharing of everything else, the millions and millions of other products that, like your car and like your spare bedroom, also spend most of their useful lifespans underutilized. We think that great software and logistics can make that happen right now. So what's the impact on poverty and inequality if most everything we would want could be in our hands fast for virtually free? And what's the impact on Earth's natural resources if we're no longer needing to manufacture millions of things every single day that'll hardly be used? To look at it from a business perspective, comparing for giggles against Amazon's model, where they also offer everything in 2 days or less with Amazon Prime versus here in minutes and for full price versus for virtually free. So I think you would agree that if a company can pull this off, capital IF, it's big if, it would be a game changer, right? Well, so I know what you want to see, which is how it works. So let's get right to it. Meet Sean. Sean has a power drill. Most of the time, that's collecting dust in his garage. In fact, I think the stat is the typical power drill gets used for 13 minutes in its entire lifetime. Sean takes a photo of his tool and he lists it to share. Meet Mark. Mark needs a power drill. He clicks to use the drill, just like he would click to get a car on Uber. Mary notices the transport opportunity and she grabs it before someone else does. Within minutes, she picks up that tool from Sean and then delivers it over to Mark. Now, Mark uses the tool. When he's done, he presses pickup. Tony this time grabs the transport opportunity before a competitor does. He picks up the drill from Mark within minutes and returns it to Sean. So that was easy. Well, let's take a peek behind the curtain and see how this works. So first off, I should tell you that the product, the Empower product, looks more like Facebook than it does Uber. One big difference is that everybody in the community is earning from doing the kinds of things that they're used to doing in social media, posting and sharing content. Of course, that took us years to optimize and get to this point, and a lot of those years were focused on blocking fraud, people creating multiple accounts or using bots in order to capture the earnings for themselves. Another difference is that every community member, the minute they register, gets what we call a free success coach. That's an experienced user that's completed special training and testing, answers questions, and helps users get learn and get things done, and they become hyper efficient thanks to a specific platform that we built and have been evolving for their needs over an 8-year period. So we've been watching what they're doing with alpha test users and constantly automating out aspects of it until 8 years later they become incredibly efficient. Success coaches are compensated based on the earnings of their students, and they earn bonuses on the quality and speed of their work and how successful and happy their students are. So with this Facebook user interface as a background where everyone's earning and has customer service, let's go back to our story. So when Sean listed his tool to share, of course his success coach Sally earned, but so did a few other people in consideration for moderating the marketplace listing and making sure it's nothing illegal and that it matches the guidelines of the marketplace. So when Mary picked up the tool from Sean, some of those earnings that we have just been talking about, based on the value of the tool, are instantly held as collateral in case she runs off with it or breaks it. She delivers it over to Mark, and at that moment, her collateral is released and Mark's collateral is held. Now, Mark uses the tool. The moment he's done using it, he presses pickup. At that moment, he's charged for his use of the tool. This time, Tony grabs the opportunity, and as you can imagine, his Mark's collateral is released, and Tony's is grabbed, and then it's released once again after he drops the tool off with Sean. At that moment, Tony's paid for the transport, and Sean is paid for his willingness to share his tool. Now, in case something goes wrong, anybody can file a dispute. If that happens, everybody's success coaches they're efficiently looped in to arbitrate. They can put in their final verdict from that interface. If they don't agree, a judge is brought in, and in this case, his final verdict instantly executes all the financial transactions as enabled by the tight integration between the judicial and the financial systems. Okay, so why has no one else done this? What obstacles stand in the way? Well, as it turns out, there are 4 very large obstacles that must first be overcome. Let's get right to it. So the first one is the technology, the platform. Incredibly complex, as you'll see in a minute, and therefore risky to build, because until you've built it all, you have no return on your investment. Outside of the technology, there's a brand and logistics nightmare just waiting to happen. We'll get into that in a second as well. So at first glance, the math makes no sense at all. Sean wanted to share his drill. Let's say he did that for a couple dollars a day. Mark only needed it for a few hours. You had a few success coaches, moderators. You had 2 transporters and maybe even some arbitrators and a judge, all needing to get paid there. How does the math make any sense at all? And finally, until you have a local critical mass where Sean and Mark are living pretty close to each other, you still have nothing. And so let's get right to how we overcome these 4 obstacles. So first of all, I should tell you that this sharing of everything is enabled by the seamless integration of, for lack of a better term, an eBay, a Facebook, an Uber, a banking system, and a crowdsourcing platform, as we just discussed, that enables the efficient human parts of that whole equation. To just go deep on one of these products, one of these aspects of the products for a moment, because it'll be useful later in this presentation, we allow anybody to sell or share anything, products, services, digital or apps. They can price it with fixed price or launch an auction. They can take a photo of the item and people can click in the photo with one click and start an auction right within the photo and charge one-off or recurring billing. The marketplace is tightly integrated into the social feed. So imagine right inside your Facebook feed being able to bid or buy on something. Imagine a Facebook or Google ad being able to bid or buy right from inside the ad. So our advertising platform is built from the ground up to be integrated with the marketplace. Of course, it's integrated into the bank. And to give you an example of how the marketplace integrates with the content and communications, we have a blogging platform. If I was writing about my mountain bike and I selected the words mountain bike and linkified it, when someone's reading my blog, they could click on that link and purchase that item right from inside the blog. We process credit cards, PayPal, and our own currency. Of course, provide customer service, dispute and reputation management, and block fraud. And finally, we actually bring them their customers. So the bottom line is that anybody can sell or share anything. Everything they need is provided, and they're up and running from registration within 30 seconds with no business experience and no capital. So we've really lowered the bar for anybody to be able to get into business, and we've done it within a user interface that they're familiar with. 2 billion people in the world know how to use Facebook, and so our platform looks like that, except everyone here is earning. And I'm not just talking about earning from selling and sharing products and services, but also from doing the kinds of things that they're used to doing in social media, posting and sharing content. And so they're having more fun, it's more productive, and a lot more engaging because they don't feel like they're wasting time. So for giggles, we sort of compared our model to Amazon's model, but if we were to compare to Facebook, where you can also communicate, post, and share, except here people are getting paid to do that, and they're doing it in an environment that has customer service, customer centricity, purpose, and fun, instead of feeling like you're wasting time and feeling guilty. So we think it's also a game changer on the social networking front. Okay, so how do we build all of these things and integrate them into each other when, as you know, as the number of features in a project go up, the complexity of the project goes up exponentially. So the chances that you actually pull it off head to 0. So how was it we were able to pull this off? And by the way, the product is live. You can go to empowr.com and sign up right now as an alpha user and start using the product so you can see for yourself that it's all working. Well, the answer is by spending just a tremendous amount of time trying different things, and for each thing that went well, some of the things I just boasted about here, we probably failed 2 to 3 or even 4 times. Many of those failures took just a few weeks after launch to recognize, and some of them took 3 or 4 years to finally give up on them. So just a lot of trial and error. Another way of saying that is we've been innovating like crazy. We have a tremendous amount of patents all around monetization of social media and virtual currency. In fact, we took our patent portfolio and we gave it to this gentleman that wrote this book and asked him to evaluate it. And his main quote coming out of that is that it is virtually impossible to monetize social media without violating our IP. Some of our inventions applications and social networks. So Facebook apps, Twitter apps, we invented that. Transactions within apps, so think about Zynga and games and Farmville, and we could buy a weapon within a game. It's another one of our patents. Any kind of transaction over a mobile device, as well as the concept of virtual currency. Much of what you're seeing with blockchain today is virtual currency. We invented that. We have the patents to prove it. In fact, if you wanted to check out our patents for yourself, Google has a pretty good patent search tool. It's located at google.com/patents. If you were to go to that URL and then simply type in my last name, Pousti, what you would see there are our patents, and you can peruse them there and see all of the things that we have successfully invented over the course of our history. Now, when you do that, one thing you'll also notice is there is just a myriad of companies that are mentioning our patent portfolio within their own patent filings. That's how broad our patent portfolio is, and that's why it's taken us so many years to bring all of what it takes to enable the sharing of everything. And there's also a ton of individuals like Paul Allen, the founder of Microsoft, that are naming and referencing our patent portfolio in their own patents. So what I'm attempting to show you there is there's just a lot of innovation that it took to bring together everything it takes from a technology standpoint to enable the sharing of everything. Now, outside of the technology, there's another obstacle, and that is you've got a brand and logistics nightmare just waiting to happen. Let me get right into that. So if you were to Google most hated brand in America, every year for the last few years, you see Facebook there in the top 10. You know, outside of fake news issue and privacy concerns, another problem that's constantly mentioned is the lack of customer service. So you load up the baby photos and grandma's trying to see them, but she can't see them. What is it? Is it the privacy controls? What's going on? There's no one to talk to. There's no customer service. People get frustrated. So now imagine if you tried to do something like that, like a Facebook, but you added money. Where, you know, Sean, what happened to his power drill, or the $2 he was owed, where's that? Or people just don't understand what's going on with the money, especially when you lower the bar so that anybody can get in business. I would submit for your consideration that any company that attempts to do that would be by far the most hated brand in the country or the world, because when it comes to people's money, they really get worked up. So kind of taking a peek at our customer service ratings. As you can see here, we have a lot of green as it compares to Twitter and Facebook, but we still have a lot of red. Almost 30% of the customers are not very happy. And so we have been working on this, and we're told that this is one of the best customer service customer scores in all of social media. As much as we're not proud of this red, how are we able to do that? Well, it comes down to these success coaching pods and that we talked about earlier. And each one, there's 31 success coaches. There are 6 auditors, 9 moderators. We've built 11 of these so far. So far we have built, we just surpassed 500 success coaches, growing at a rate of 75 new ones per month. So after 8 years of building this success coaching platform, we're finally at a point where it's really starting to scale, and we can see how this can get to thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of success coaches if we need to, and enable the human aspects of this. And so our score has been improving for 17 quarters in a row, so we're constantly pushing that red down quarter after quarter, and we expect, we hope, to have one of the best customer satisfaction scores in all of tech within 3 years, as if that continues, and it's happening with the help of the Success Coach program. So that's how we attack this brand and logistics nightmare that would be happening if you were not able to offer customer service in the sharing of everything. Now, outside of that, the next obstacle is, you know, how does the math make any sense? Let's take a peek at each participant's motivation. So Sean wanted to earn, Mark needed to drill, Mary wanted to earn too. You know, when we showed her the transport opportunity and she saw how far she has to drive to make that happen, she was not a very happy camper. So what our algorithms do is they wait a couple minutes to see if anyone grabs that. If no one does, it takes the price up, hoping that someone will want to deliver that for that amount. Still, nobody grabs it. Let's take it up even further. Wait 2 minutes. Still no one. Take it up even further, and at $36, Mary grabs the transport opportunity. So how can we afford to do that? And of course, the answer is virtual currency. So Mark paid $1 each way for transport, and Empower subsidized the difference using virtual currency. By doing that, we can pay more for that transport at first, and then as more people join and these distances begin to drop, so do the transport costs, in which case Mary might be happy to deliver that for $6 with that distance. Now, outside of the technology for virtual currency, to make this work, one must have demand for the currency. In other words, Mary is unwilling to do anything for that virtual currency unless there's a ton of products and services available for it. Now, having said that, to make that happen, there needs to be a lot of people also providing products and services. And so you have a real chicken or egg problem that we have spent years working to overcome. And now we've overcome it. And the proof, by the way, that we've overcome it is those 500 success coaches I mentioned as an example. They are generating $250,000 each month. That's what we're paying them. And all of that is in virtual currency. And they're spending nearly 90% of that in the marketplace buying things from each other. And what's actually cashing out to US dollars is about $30,000 US dollars per month. And so that kind of shows the proof that we've sort of come up above this chicken or egg problem. Now, outside of that, you also need the ability to decrease or increase the supply of currency in a smooth way. In other words, in every area, if we have to subsidize transport at first, while the distances between people are larger, you're going to flood the market with too much currency and create inflation. And so what we need are controls to increase and decrease the supply of currency. So we've been working with a group of economics professors from Yale, MIT, Berkeley, and a few other universities over the last few years. And we've been building these controls that allow us to do that. And so that's how we make the math make sense, showing you how the number of transactions this year, 2017, when it's done, will be our first year where we exceed $1 billion worth of transactions. And that's actually $1 billion in Empower dollars, our virtual currency. And it's always converted at a rate of one Empower dollar to $1 US dollar. And so that is how we make the math make sense. And finally, until you have a local critical mass, the model, to make this work, you're going to need a business model that works even without that critical mass while the distances are still larger. And so that's why we went deep on looking at the marketplace, because what I want to tell you here is that currently we have hundreds of thousands of products being listed and sold each month between our users, which we call citizens, and they're shipping those products. So the model is working even when the distances are further out. And so the idea is that as more users join and as these distances start to drop, people will start sharing instead of selling the products. Now, a natural question to ask at this point is, well, this is all fine and dandy that it's working here, but who's to say that as the distances begin to drop, that the people selling those hundreds of thousands of products each month would be willing to share those products instead of sell them? And on the other side, who's to say the buyers that are buying those items currently would be willing to access or use those products instead of purchase them? And my answer to that question is, out of those hundreds of thousands of products being listed to sell each month, 70% of them, 70% of them are being listed to sell or share. So the sellers are understanding that instead of selling that power drill for $30 in virtual currency and then it's gone, if you could instead share it for a couple dollars a day, well, you would be getting recurring revenue out of it. It's the gift that keeps on giving, so you would earn more by doing that. And on the flip side, the buyers are saying, instead of paying $30 for this thing and then being stuck with it when I don't need it, if I could use it and then press a button and it magically disappears, well, of course I would prefer that. So this model is just sliding smoothly into the sharing of everything. And that's how we make those 4 obstacles work. Now, I should tell you that Empower has never raised a penny from investors. And so why is that? Well, it's not from a shortage of interest. These are some of the folks that have communicated a desire to invest in Empower. We had a 9-figure term sheet from the Rockefellers. This gentleman you might recognize as perhaps the #1 tech investor in the world. First investor into Google and Amazon and many of the big high-tech companies in Silicon Valley. In fact, this is the term sheet that he offered us. You'll notice $160 million pre-money. He claims that that was the highest price he has ever offered on a Series A company in his 35 years of investing, and we have seen nothing to dispute that. In fact, Google was 5 or 10 million. All these companies are usually 5 or 10 million in their Series A. And so why would we walk away from a fantastic gentleman like that and the money? Well, the answer is we wanted the platform to be owned and operated by the community. We want it to be democratic. Okay, so why would we want that? Well, software is poised to wipe out jobs like nothing we have seen. Why is that? Well, you not only have Moore's Law still growing exponentially, making computers faster and faster for the same price, but now, finally, you have artificial intelligence software also getting better at an exponential rate. And you have these two exponentials multiplying by each other. And so what that means is you're going to have hundreds and then thousands of industry verticals that will become monopolized by 1 or 2 apps, in essence, kind of like an Uber in their space. And due to the network effect, that's how they're going to monopolize them. And what that will ultimately mean is 1 or 2 billionaires at the top of these companies, a few hundred or a few thousand employees that are doing well, and millions of workers working within these ecosystems. Now, as those apps begin to see their revenues plateau, as which happens with all companies, the only way they're going to be able to continue to push their profits and share prices up is by starting to squeeze the costs. And when you're doing that, when most of their costs are what they're paying these workers, that means they're going to start squeezing the workers and paying them less and less. And you're already starting to see this with Uber. And so our concern is that when that happens, you're going to start getting economic insecurity on a wide scale because of the monopolization that's happened and how easy these companies and these apps will find it is to start squeezing, because those workers will have nowhere else to go. In fact, showing my book here to you, if you were to type in Empower into Amazon, you'd see my book. I go into these concepts and how it's going to lead to economic insecurity. In fact, in this one chapter called The Dictator Playbook, I talk about how this is going to create anger amongst everyday people, and they're going to become vulnerable to a charismatic leader that connects with them and gives them a target for their hate, getting power through an election, and then start squashing dissenting voices in his own organization and without it. So yes, the answer is yes, this was written before Brexit and all the populist movements and candidates that you see out there. It was written in 2014 and published in early 2015. And so it doesn't take a crystal ball to understand that if you are getting exponential forces that are going to be monopolizing all these verticals where people are going to be working within, and then they're going to have no choice but to start squeezing what they're paying these workers, you're going to have economic insecurity on a wide scale like nothing we've seen in probably a century. And if you think about how World War II happened and how Hitler came to power, and this is something where we've seen in history over and over again is going to lead to this. So what's the solution? A platform that also takes advantage of Moore's Law and the network effect, but has as its primary objective the prosperity of its users as opposed to the enrichment of shareholders. And of course, I'm talking about Empower. Okay, we are ready to move on to part 2, which is all about how to value the different cryptocurrencies out there, a question that we are often asked, and that includes a discussion about Empower's cryptocurrency. To watch that, just click the link at the top right of your screen.